I work for. That is Will Parkinson of Badlands and TOJ. Will, I kid you not, I think the comments that Kyle Brandt made referring to a conversation he had with you about what the expectations should be for the Jets has been covered in every day part of the ESPN New York lineup, including when I was on yesterday filling in for Chris Carlin. So, I mean, excellent job by you. Ty did a segment today. You know, the afternoon show, the morning shows covered it. I mean, you started quite the content spree with your text message exchange with Kyle Brandt.
Kyle texted me and was like, full transparency, whatever. Kyle's a good friend and was at the wedding and the whole thing. So this is not like uncommon. He usually will be like, hey, like, how are you feeling about the team? Where are we at? You know, whatever. And I was like, I feel cautiously optimistic, but like, you know, there's obviously question marks and stuff like that. And I feel like 7 or 8 wins would be a good season if the young players played well and they won some division games. And like, you know, they beat New England or Buffalo when it mattered, right? Like in one of the earlier games in the year. And I don't know, I'd be like, and the young guys are good. Hey, that'd be a really big positive step in the right direction. They haven't won more than 7 games in 11 years, 10 years. And I was like, that'd be a really positive step in the right direction where we actually believed in the young roster, and the coach even at that point probably would show enough where people were like, you know, actually might change my tune on Aaron Glenn. And it was just funny, Jake, because I'm not surprised, but a lot of people were like, hey, 7 and 10, 8 and 9, like shouldn't be good enough. I was like, listen, man, the goal is to make the playoffs. No doubt about it, right? Every year the goal is to win a Super Bowl and to make the playoffs. And I'm not sitting here pretending like I won't be the happiest person in the world if they make the playoffs. But I also don't want to sit here and have unrealistic expectations for a team that has a 5.5 over-under win total. That when they won 3 games last year and they were by the skin of their teeth at that point, if they won 7 or 8 games, man, and the young players are good, and you see real genuine progress where there's actually something to build around, I do think that's a win for a team that's been bad for a really long time. Like, we can't sit here and scoff at that. I mean, maybe I'm wrong, and I know people are going to be like, that's a loser attitude. I saw one guy called into Rothenberg and the EPH was like, this loser talking about 7 wins. I'm like, dude, they won 5 games with Aaron Rodgers and Devontae. Like, what are we doing here? We got to be at least some realistic set expectations to start the year.
So let's play the full clip here. So I pulled it again. Will described it well. Kyle Brandt asked him for his thoughts on the Jets and the expectations. And this was the segment on NFL Network's Good Morning Football.
My friend Will Parkinson is all over the Jets. He talks about them morning, noon, and night, his podcast, and different platforms. So I enlist the Jets fan friend. I'm like, I could easily watch the game from my perspective, but I want the real grassroots, man of the people type perspective. How do you feel about the Jets this year? And his first response is like, well, we got 3 wins in 2027 and $100 million in cap space. I'm like, all right. I know. What about this year? If I were to slide you across the table a deal for the Jets this year, and that deal, when you turn it over, says 7 and 10, would you take 7 and 10? And he's like, well, do the young players look good on defense? I say, yes. Can we get 3 divisional wins out of that 7 and 10? I'm like, fine. He's like, yeah, hell yes, I would take 7 and 10. And this is a guy who is optimistic about the Jets. And I'm always saying in August, shoot for the stars. Say you're going to go 9 and 8 and sneak a wild card. No, I have it from the authority of true voice of the New York Jets that if the young players look good and there's 3 divisional wins, which is a lot, 7 and 10 would be a victorious season for them. I think it's being a little modest. I think they could be better.
What's funny is last year you were at the 9 wins that he's talking about there. You believed in this team and thought they were going to be better. I think what you described and what Kyle described is not awful. My pushback would be, there's different versions of 7 and 10. Like there's soft 7 and 10s. What if they have 6 wins going into the last game of the year and then they beat the Buffalo Bills backups, right? Like Adam Gase was the king of the soft 7-win season. They started 1 and 7 and then finished 7 and 9, and their wins were against crappy teams. And they even lost to the 0-11 Bengals that year. So, like, I just think it really comes down to how it looks. Now, one of the things in there that I do think is important is, of course, the younger players playing well. That matters. That's one thing that Saleh could point to and why he lasted into his 4th year. We did see, especially on the defensive side of the ball, younger players get better. So that's something you need to see. The division record's interesting, though, right? 3-3. Yeah, that'd be major improvement. You didn't win a division game last year, but everyone's telling you the Miami Dolphins are tanking and they're the worst team in the NFL. So if you beat them twice and then you win 1 more between Buffalo and New England, is 3-3 good enough in that scenario? That's the question. Like, were they competitive in the losses? So I don't know if I would just blanket sign for that. There's too much unknown, but I think that is at least a scenario where, all right, you feel like they did make significant progress overall, despite the record still being 7-10.
Yeah, it kind of feels like, in one way, one team I kind of thought about was even the Saints last year, where they, when they finished 7-10, they got hot towards the end of the year, but they beat a couple of good teams. They started to see some promise out of the young guys. Olave was awesome. A lot of their rookie class and second year guys really showed flash. They feel like you feel good about the coach now, because you're like, Kellen Moore started to do some nice things here. They obviously were adding pieces in the draft and things like that. I think part of the difficulty of the conversation with the Jets is that because they don't have a quarterback that we feel like is going to be the future guy, right? And maybe some people think Klubnik is or isn't. It makes the conversation a little bit more difficult. And the reason I would push back on the Saleh 7-10 is, in some ways, like, Saleh's shortcomings as a coach really exemplified themselves that year, where they could not win games down the stretch. There was a lot of failed to show up in big moments. They were bad in situationally. It felt like they got out coached at time. Like, that's where, like, again, to your point, there's nuance to it, right? Whereas, hey man, the Jets start 4-4 and they finish 3-6 or 4-5, or in one of those scenarios, right? They win 7 or 8 games. But hey, they were really competitive. They upset Denver. Let's say they upset Denver and they beat New England early in the year. And, Glenn takes care of the games he's supposed to, and they're competitive. They lose one-score games because Gino's just not the guy, that can go head toe-to-toe with an Allen or Herbert or Mahomes. But, like, competitive all year. There's lack of blowouts. They're in every game. You're seeing real tangible progress. That, to me, is kind of what I'm talking about there, is like a non-playoff scenario where you leave the year and you go, you know what? I feel really good, and it's not because you won 2 in a row to end the year against, J.J. McCarthy at that point and the Bills' backups. It's because you got to really – Glenn has a couple feathers in his cap. Hey, I beat the number 1 seed in the AFC a year ago. I beat a division rival on the road. Different things like that. Again, like, they haven't won in Miami in forever. And again, you would hope they could beat a team like Miami, who has kind of shown you they're actively not necessarily trying to be very good this year, and they're thinking about more towards the future. But at some point, and I know people don't want to hear this, I think it's easy to just say lose games. That's how you're going to fix the franchise. Jake, I don't know that that's necessarily even accurate. Like, I think in certain scenarios, and you get the once in a lifetime Peyton Manning situation, the Cowboys, obviously with Aikman and stuff like that. I know those things have happened. But even the guys that have been the number 1 picks that have won the Super Bowl, like Matt Stafford didn't win the Super Bowl with the Lions. It took him to get traded for multiple first-round picks halfway through, middle 10, 12 years into his career. I look at the examples as of recently, and again, I know these guys are the best players in the league. But for what it's worth, the Buffalo Bills broke their playoff drought and then traded up twice to go get Josh Allen. The Chiefs had Alex Smith. We're a team that was 11-5, 12-4, and traded up to go get Mahomes. The Ravens traded up for Lamar. The Eagles took Hurts in the second round. The Cowboys took Dak. The Seahawks and Rams both traded for veterans to get there. The Bucs signed Baker Mayfield. The Lions traded for Jared Goff. The Niners took Brock Purdy. Like, there's more than one way to skin a cat here. The Broncos took Bo Nix at 12. So my point is, Jordan Love trade up with a team that was already good. So a lot of these teams have had good infrastructure. They've changed the culture. They feel good about the coach, good about the GM, the roster. And then they're able to use draft capital and free agency money to go up and build around a rookie quarterback. Houston obviously was bad and got good quite quickly. That's kind of a unique scenario. I don't know that it always, as good as Jake, like as good as Joe Burrow is, the Bengals, are still a bad franchise. And they've been perpetually bad for the last couple of years because Burrow gets hurt and everything around him and the coaching's not good enough. My point, and all in this is to say, is like, I think it's very easy to go into this year and have realistic expectations, hope they win football games. And if they do, enjoy it. And if they're bad and they end up being really bad, Glenn won't be the guy. You'll ride out the season. You'll pick in the top 5 and things will go from that perspective. But I just feel like it's this, you have to pick one to fix the franchise. And like 5 guys have won Super Bowls as the number 1 pick with the franchise they actually started with. And it's the list you would think of. It's, Terry Bradshaw back in like the 70s, and it's Troy Aikman, obviously, as we know, and it's Eli. And Eli, again, Matt Stafford is a guy who didn't even win it with the team yet. He was, picked by, and Peyton. And he won 1, and he was he's one of the 2-3 best players ever quarterback wise, and he was with that franchise forever and no one won. So my point is, I think it's important to prioritize winning games and setting a realistic expectation that, because Jake, and I guess I'll leave it at this. I just went off on a tangent there, but let's say go 3-14, but like guys are healthy all year, aren't you then concerned? Like, I love Muji right now, but then you're concerned Muji might be bad too, because these guys might not be are these players as good as we thought they were, or is it just coaching? Can you only blame coaching? That would be a little scary to me 2 years into a regime if, hey, Membu's regressing and Olu's not the guy we thought, and, Sadiq looks like crap. Like, that would be a little scary to me if they're going to win 3 games, unless, again, Gino gets hurt and they play out the string.
The Jake Asman Show is brought to you by PrizePicks. Check out PrizePicks right now. If you're a sports fan, they have something for everyone, especially if you're one of my listeners and you're gearing up for the upcoming Jets season. For player picks on PrizePicks, you just pick a player you like and you go more or less on a few of their stats. Check out some of the numbers they have for some of your favorite Jet players: Geno Smith, Breece Hall, Garrett Wilson, Omar Cooper Jr., Kenyon Sadiq, and many more. PrizePicks should be your go-to, and check out their new offer right now. Play your first $5 and get $150 in lineups if you win. All you need to do is sign up and use that code HMA. That's PrizePicks code HMA. Download the app now or click the link in the description to download the PrizePicks app today. So that would concern me, but I think they could be bad and we still could feel good about some young players, because we just went through it this past year. Yeah. Like, Membu was great. They still won 3 games, Like, I think that scenario you described would be, you'd definitely be concerned, but I have a hard time thinking that, like, we'd feel awful about all these players. They're just too talented. Like, I don't think David Bailey's going to suck. He could be very good and they still could be a 4 or 5 win team. So, like, Myles Garrett was the best player in the NFL. He was in Cleveland. He won nothing. So that would be my one pushback to that. That said, I see your point. To me, it's not just about the quarterback, though. It's about the head coach. So it's getting the right head coach with the quarterback, and your job is an attractive one to get both in the same offseason. And the reason why the Patriots took off the way they did is Mike Vrabel got there. Drake May was there as a rookie. The reason why Ben Johnson chose the Bears is he saw the potential in Caleb Williams, and they figured out, like, great coaches could take a quarterback they think is talented and make it work. The reason why the Raider job was attractive for the top offensive guy this cycle in Kubiak was because they could pick Fernando Mendoza. So to me, it's not just about drafting the quarterback. It's also about getting one of the top coaches. And I don't even know if the Jets need the number 1 pick to do that, because they never get the number 1 pick. And I wouldn't expect them to get it this year. They're probably, if they're bad, going to be picking 2 or 3 like they always are. They're never bad enough to get that top pick. So I think it's just about, if you're not going to be relevant, like in the hunt, fighting for a playoff spot, I understand why fans are like, just give me the 3-win season and let's get a new staff in here. We have some young talent. We have $100 million in cap space. We have 3 wins. We'll get a top coach. Let them then figure out the direction for the franchise. The other thing I'd bring up too, it's not just 7-10 and say, okay, I'd sign for that. It's, can you get off to a good start so we have a season? Like, don't do the Gase 1-7 start. Don't do Aaron Glenn 0-7, then you win 3 of your next 5 against backup QBs. Nobody cares at that point. Go win week 1 and then go find a way to win 1 of your next 3 and then beat the Browns and be 3-2 going into the middle of October. That's what I want to see. I want to see real improvement.
Can they be 6-8 with 3 to go? And it's like, hey, they're probably not going to make the playoffs, but they're in it. They're playing. This game technically matters. They're in it. They're playing a competitive game. It matters for the teams they're playing. And they go, I don't know, pick whatever game. I don't know. Even if it's, let's say they win 8 games for the season. They win this. They're 7-9 going into week 18, and they're playing up in Buffalo. And Buffalo needs that game. And the Jets go in there similar to what Detroit did, and they upset, when Green Bay, obviously Rodgers last year. Detroit went in there and like they had nothing to really play for, right? Like they were eliminated, and they were 7-9, I believe, at that point, or 8, whatever it was, 8-8, whatever. And they go in there and they take one from Josh Allen at the end of the year, and you're like, whoa, like that's tangibly like Glenn won a game. He needs to win I think, Jake, 2 games this year, maybe that they're not favored in. They have no expectation of winning. It could be against good teams where you go, whoa, like part of the reason Saleh got, I felt like, year 4, even though he shouldn't have in a lot of ways. The Eagles and the Bills wins were legit, man. And they should have beat the Chiefs if Zach Wilson doesn't piss down his leg on.
Well, he won 7 games and the whole team was built around Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, it was like, hey man, they had 2 or 3 really impressive performances in that year where you felt like they could play up to their competition. I feel like Glenn has shown that they actually can, like in this first year, the one thing he did show is like they can beat teams they're supposed to beat. That's cool. And the Jets usually don't do that and whatever. I also now need to see Glenn go in, and we almost saw it against Denver and against Carolina, which were 2 playoff teams, and I guess Pittsburgh, so 3. Point being, they didn't win those games though. While they were competitive, and that was nice, and they should have won arguably all 3 of those if they have any semblance of both.
He blew Denver. That's on the head coach.
No, Denver's on the coach, and it's on not trusting Fields. If you couldn't trust him, you shouldn't have been in the game. So even though yes, you could blame Fields on that point, I think Glenn should have pulled the trigger. We all thought so at halftime of that game. And Tyrod probably should have started against Carolina, and they probably win both those games. I don't blame Glenn for Pittsburgh. I felt like they actually did. Like, you blame him if you want about Gibson being on the roster. That's 100% fair. I don't actually thought he coached well in that game. Like, they went for 2 when they were supposed to, and they did some exciting stuff. I just want to see consistency, man. I want to see a team that's like the entire season the arrow's pointing up, and they're going to go through ebbs and flows because any team in the NFL does. But can you get off to start 2-2? Can you give people some confidence? Like, hey, man, again, Glenn went and beat Detroit. They win week 1, they lose week 2, and then holy shit, they beat the Lions in Detroit, and it's like that's a feather in Glenn's cap. Now that he's prepared, things are going the right way. I think people kind of get it misconstrued. There is a subsection of the fan base that just hates Glenn, and they're never going to give up on it, and that's fine. And there's a subsection that loves Glenn, and they'll never kind of concede he's not good.
We call those the bootlickers.
I think that there's a majority of the fan base that is dying for him to be a good coach. People want to see wins. And
there's no evidence he's a good coach. There's not a single thing you could point to that suggests
nothing last year to me was, even though there was a few moments where you're like, ooh, maybe it wasn't consistent enough or over a long enough stretch where it was, going to happen. So to me,
and we're even looking for the ooh, maybe, because he's a former Jet. Robert Saleh was not going to get the benefit of the doubt. If they hired Arthur Smith, he was not going to get the benefit of the doubt. The only reason why people are holding out hope is because he played for the Jets and was a very good player.
Yeah, and it would be a cool story, man. Like, again, maybe it's just you fall in love with the storylines, but that's part of sports, right? That's why we love it. It's the excitement. Like, there was nothing would be cooler than, even if Glenn's not the guy. Like, you guys, I've heard you use the Tom Thibodeau example a lot. Dude, he'd be a franchise legend even 25 times over, even if he doesn't ever take the Jets to the promised land. If he gets them back to just being a relevant, normal, good franchise, the way they were when he played here, and he was part of that turnaround as a player, would just be such a nice. Again, even if he's not the guy to get you over the hump, even if he's the guy to get you over right now, the hump has become a normal, solid, run-of-the-mill NFL franchise that just like, hey, man, you go into the year and like things swing the right way and you could have a really good year. And if they have a down year, they're 6-11, 7-10. I know we talked about like kind of the scenario Kyle laid out. I think the worst case scenario is that you go 5-12 and you have absolutely no idea if you're good or not. That is like, you're not convinced of the young players, but they were good, but you're kind of like, you're not sure.
Do I get a new coach in that scenario though?
You get a new coach in that scenario. But
I'd sign for that. I'd sign for that over 7-10 and Glenn comes back and we still don't know.
You pick, I don't know, it's like a weird year where, to me, again, also one of the two kind of also different things are like, what's going to happen with the Colts, the Packers, and the Cowboys? The Cowboys look awesome. And they're the Cowboys, and Dak unfortunately gets hurt every other year, and last year was not hurt, so you never know. But Dallas feels like a team that's going to be really good. They made a lot of really good additions on defense. Green Bay, I have no idea. They're probably a 7 or 8 win team that could become a 12 or 13 win team if Micah's healthy and Kraft's healthy and these guys. But we don't know. Micah's not playing until October. The Colts are the weird one, man. Tyler Warren left practice today, limping off the field. They're signing Keenan Allen in the end of August. Alec Pierce has not touched the football field yet. Daniel Jones is coming back from an Achilles. That's a staff that's on the line. If you're a Jets fan, and this is what I would recommend, the first month of the season, again, hopefully they show you something where you can invest in October, right? And they show you enough in October to invest in December from a Jets perspective. You got to be rooting avidly against Indianapolis, I think, first of all. And then it's important the Jets in some ways win week 2, man. Like, you help your own draft position and you win football games. Like, that's kind of the dream, right? So yeah, I don't know. I think this year is so much about the eye test. I think we'll know pretty quickly if Glenn's got a good pulse of like, he knows what he's doing. And if he doesn't, we'll probably know it right away as well and be like, oof.
I mean, they're 0-4. It's over at that point. He's not recovering from that.
Yeah, I know you've made this point a bunch. It feels like winning week 1 buys them like 5 or 6 extra weeks of relevancy where, hey, man, we just got to get through this hard stretch of the NFC North, and then we got 3 of the next 4 at home, and, we can get back to 4-4, we can get back to 3-5, and, like, give ourselves a shot of doing something the second half of the year. It's just you can't get off to a slow start. Now, I don't know if they will. I really, like, things in Tennessee do not, and maybe it's just training camp and we get caught up in this stuff, Jake, and we'll both be down there. Everything you read about Tennessee is like it's a mess. And Cam Ward looks like Zach Wilson, and Carnell Tate's hurt now, and Calvin Ridley's doing this, and the offensive line's a mess, and Jacob Martin starting at one of the edge spots with Jermaine Johnson, and it's like, oof. It's like 4-year-older 2022 Jets defensive line. Cordell Flott covering Garrett Wilson sounds like a good time. All that's great, but if you don't show up and beat Tennessee, it doesn't matter, right? Like, we can say all the things we want. I think the Jets are a better roster than Tennessee, and I would be really cool if Glenn could actually do something that he did. One thing Jets coaches never do. He won out of the bye last year, Jake. Can you do something other Jets coaches never do, which is win a revenge game? They never win their revenge game ever. It would be very anti-Jets to be.
He already lost a revenge game last year to Rodgers.
Right. So I'm saying, like, it'd be nice to. Can we win one of them? Like, we don't have to talk about it too much.
Yeah, it just he has to win that game again. Like, sure, they could beat the Packers week 2, and then it's like, oh, you were so worked up. Okay, like, yeah, and I hope if they lose week 1, they definitely win week 2. What confidence would I have that that's going to happen? And then they're beyond that. If you lose week 1, you're going on the road in weeks 3 and 4, where you're going to be a touchdown plus underdog in those games, especially if you're 0-2. Like, the Packers are probably going to be 4.5, 5-point underdog, depending on how you look week 1, especially if you lose, you'll definitely be that. Like, you have to just find a way to stack some wins early and show that last year was a huge outlier and things are going to be different, because a bad start, he's done. It's over. Forget it.
Yeah. It just would be nice. It'd be nice to get off to a decent start. It'd be also, Jake, they've talked a lot about changing the culture, and one good way to change the culture is to win football games early.
Maybe the only way.
It's like I said, at some point you got to win games, and whether you believe it or not, I would be really nice. And I keep saying this, it'd be really nice to start off 2-2,
3-2, playing the Browns, right?
Playing the Patriots, and it's like, oh, like, this game actually matters. And
well, their first 8 games, 4 of them are against bad teams. Tennessee, the Dolphins, the Raiders, the Browns. They should be 4-4 through 8 if this team is well coached.
Yeah, and like, dude, we're sitting there 4-4. There's at least a reason. There's at least a reason to be like, okay, maybe they have figured some stuff out, and there is progression here, and it gets you buy-in from some of the young players and some of the veterans that at some point, are going to get tuned out by it. Like, you don't want to lose Garrett Wilson eventually. Eventually you are going to, he's going to be a guy that eventually gets sick of the losing, and he already is sick of the losing, obviously. But I really think, like, can you develop, like, again, another feather in Glenn's cap, or not in Glenn's cap, would be like, do you develop the young players that you drafted, you picked, right? Like, developing a David Bailey, developing, Azaria Thomas, these guys that, like, they brought in, they're going to be defensive starters this year.
How about have an interception? I mean,
yeah, I think Minka's getting one early week 1.
Robert goes, I just want to see an interception if possible. Can we get one early? I mean, come on.
They're going to get Cam on what they used to get Zach on, which is, I think they're going to bring pressure the first drive or two, and then they're going to, like, send a bunch of simulated stuff that's going to be, Cam likes to sit back there and pat the football and, like, run around. He's really good at it. No one's, like, he's an ultra talented dude, but that's what they used to do with Zach, and the Patriots would stop blitzing guys, and they'd, bring 7 or 8 guys up to the box, and they'd show these crazy pressures, and they just drop 8 guys in coverage, and Zach's brain would break. And I'm not saying Cam Zach. I'm just saying, like, it's the classic, think your internal clock speeds up, and then you make a bad decision. You don't see the linebacker just sitting in the hole. And I feel like they're going to move Minka around, and he'll get his hands on a couple of footballs this year, and hopefully early. Dude, if they can get an interception in the first quarter and just, like, move on, you know what I mean? And it's like, that just dies right away. Again, it's one of those things where, like, this is such a maybe this is the optimist in me, Jake, and whatever. They feel like such a team where like things could teeter so easily this year, where if you get some stuff out of the way early, you could have a much more fun year than you expect.
That's why, even though I got pushback from people in the Jets world, by the way, why I think week 1 is so important for everything you're saying, because it changes the whole tenor of the season. If you have a win against your ex-coach, and okay, we're not 0-7, we're 1-0, things feel different.
They win week 1 last year. I think they finished 7-10 or 8-9.
I don't know about that, but they're definitely in a better shape.
Then they beat Denver and Carolina, these teams, because they're playing with confidence, and it's like they probably win. Maybe they win 6 games, and who would have cared, right? It didn't matter. At the end of the day, it's probably better what happened last year. It just week 1 doesn't matter a ton for everybody, but it matters a ton when you're a team trying to reset your culture, reset the vibes. It takes so much pressure off of you, where they can kind of be carefree week 2, Jake. You kind of come out and you're like, we don't give a fuck. Like we're 1-0. We're not supposed to win this game. We're at home. It'd be nice to
it relieves the pressure, because they're going to be feeling it for that entire week going into the home opener, where half the building besides you and the Jet fans making the trip is Packers fans if they're 0-1. So I'm with you.
It's a deal. Just got no chance unless you click on that like button. And you got to make sure you subscribe to the Jake Asman Show. You don't, you can get the fuck out. Now let's go, Asmaniacs. We're built for this shit.